about how to engage your users through email campaigns.
All right, thank you. So this is my first time presenting at Casual Connect. Very excited to be here. It's been a great show for us so far. It's our second year here. And I'm a little surprised when I look at the agenda and don't really see anything else involving email. And I think email is such a powerful tool in the gaming space. And what we're going to try to show you today is why you should care about email as a gaming company. What are some fundamentals about the program that you want to have included in your program? And then Wendy's going to come up and show some examples of what we've done with Kabam. A little closer. Oh. All right. Oh, that's better. So then Wendy's going to come up and show some examples of what we've done for Kabam and what she's done with her program. So why should gaming companies care about email? First and foremost, as a gaming provider, your window to communicate with your players is when they're in a gaming environment. And establishing an email channel allows you to communicate with them outside of that environment, drive them back into the game, lift your daily active users, and really create a bigger relationship with the player than just inside your gaming platform. Email is a very effective branding tool. This is true outside gaming and in every industry. We've done studies with a number of brands where we've shown that we can increase brand favorability through email campaigns. And when you have strong branding, like most of the games we see do, you take advantage of that creative, make your emails reflect the gaming creative, and really build your brand. It also helps you create interest around your game. We sat in on a lifecycle marketing program yesterday that talked about, what a high percentage of revenue typically comes in from such a small percentage of your players. So the importance of creating that relationship to have these longer lasting players that are going to pay more money over their life is really important. And email and anything you can do around that is going to help drive those decisions to stay or go in that first week when you see a lot of the drop off. Email overall is a very inexpensive and highly measurable tool, so you really can see your ROI, and Wendy's going to show you some numbers on that. It allows you to create cross and upsell opportunities. So a lot of you guys have more than one game, so you're going to know that players who play this game are very likely to like this game as well. You now have a vehicle to market those games as they come out to your existing players. And it allows you to enhance the gaming experience. So in-game triggered messages, tips and tricks, leaderboards, there's a lot of content you can add to your gaming experience through email. So now we're going to go through some fundamentals of a good program. So as you're adding email into your mix, what are some things you should do? First and foremost, the point of collection is the most important part. When you're collecting somebody's email address, you want to make sure you're disclosing up front what you're going to do with the email address. How often you're going to communicate with them, what type of communications you're going to send to them. Ask for a good address. If you're a Facebook-based game, Facebook email addresses are notoriously bad. If you think about it, Facebook sends billions of emails a day. Not many people give their primary email address to Facebook. So if you're just taking the address that Facebook gives you, you're going to get someone's second, third, or fourth email address that they're never going to check. So you want to put into place programs up front to let the person know you're going to send them something very valuable to their email, whether it's free virtual currency or something else around your game, and ask them for a better email address right up front. Provide options. Let them opt into different types of communications, newsletters, promotions. And also, once you collect that address, reach out to them right away. They're in market right now. They've just signed up for your game. They're expecting to see something from you, so send them a real-time trigger so they get that in your inbox right now. Messaging mix is very important. There's a bunch of different kinds of messages you can send out to your players. A welcome series is a structured communication you can set up in a tool like Pulse Connect that Kabam uses to have a structured 7-day, 14-day, anywhere up to 90-day program. So when someone signs up, they're going to have this very structured communication over a set number of days that are kind of decision tree based, where if they open one message, they'll get a second one. If they didn't open the first one, they might get a different version of the second one. And it really helps drive that initial engagement. The game-driven triggers are very effective. So level ups, different actions in the game, drive a trigger to send that person an award or some kind of status update in email. The lapse and reactivation, you notice someone hasn't played for a couple days, you can pull them back in with a lapse email. Milestones, cross promotes, newsletters, really the amount of content you have really determines what kind of program you can build. Branding, very important. You want to carry the branding from your game into email. So you want to make sure that when someone's getting this email, they really quickly can tie it back to your gaming environment. So here's an example of some of the Godfather emails and how they tie back to the gaming environment. You can see the very similar artwork, similar color palette. Make sure your message has a purpose. This is a slide I kind of adapted from a presentation I do in retail. Retailers kind of want to send buy now, buy now, buy now, buy now. And that's not what the consumer wants to hear. So that's not what your players want to hear. Don't just tell them to come play. Give them actual content. Give them value add. That will drive them to come play. It's fine to have the play now button, but that shouldn't be the main point of your email. Segmenting is huge. All lists are not created equal. You have a big list of players. Every one of those players has different attributes. Some of them are active, and some of them have not played in days or weeks. You clearly want to treat those two groups differently. You have payers and non-payers. It's so important to nurture your payers and to make sure they keep paying, but it's equally important to create new payers from your non-payers. So there are definitely different strategies that you want to put into place for those different groups of people. And then your openers and non-openers. Again, outside the gaming space, across the board for email, you look at how people are reacting to your email and treat them differently. If someone's never opened an email from you and you've been sending to them for a year and a half, you might want to stop sending to them frequently. Maybe try to send to them once a month to try to reactivate them. But the people that are opening on a regular basis are the ones that you want to really keep in your program on your daily send list. And list maintenance. One of the most commonly made mistakes in the email space is feeling that unsubscribes are a bad thing. If somebody unsubscribes from your program, it's actually a very healthy thing. It tells you that they trust your brand. They're telling you, like, look, I really just don't want to hear from you in email. So you want to respect that. Let them off your list. If they unsubscribe, it's fine you want to offer them options, maybe opt down instead of opting out. But don't waste your time and money sending to people that really don't want mail from you. So make it very easy for somebody to get off your list. Your list isn't going to suddenly dry up and go away. It's going to just get a lot healthier. And that actually will contribute to the program overall, because the way the deliverability in email space works is that the ISPs and receiving parties like Yahoo and Hotmail and Gmail are looking at the whole. How do people react to your mail? Are they opening? Are they clicking? Are they deleting without opening? And every time you're sending to someone who doesn't want to get your mail, it reflects negatively on your brand. And ultimately, fewer of your messages will get through in the long run if you keep sending to people who don't want your mail. So if people want to get off your list, let them off your list. And that's a real quick 10 minutes or so version of what email marketing is. So, Wendy, we've been working together for a couple years now. Only 1 year?
Feels like forever.
And they've done some great things with email. One of our more progressive clients, they really push our platform. And I think that they've done a lot of work and she has some really good stuff to show you guys. It's some real practical examples.
Hi guys. So Damien gave you a lot of great high-level overviews of how to implement best practices into your email program. And what I'd like to spend the next couple minutes doing is reviewing kind of how we've taken those best practices and put them into our Kabam email programs. So just a quick overview, quick background on Kabam. We are a developer of free-to-play core games across a variety of platforms, social, web, mobile. Here are a couple of our titles. Kingdoms of Camelot came out in October 2009, Dragons of Atlantis, fall 2010, Edgeworld and Godfather were in 2011, and Kingdoms of Camelot Battle for the North is our first iOS game. Came out earlier this year, and my team supports all the games across our portfolios, and so we send email for everyone. So quick high level, like why is email important to Kabam? So similar to what Damien said before, emails are really highly measurable, highly effective channel to reach our players when they're not in the game currently. And so we actually use email to talk to both active and lapsed players. So for lapsed players, obviously they're not playing the game anymore. Email is the only way you can reach them. But for active players as well, email is a great channel to keep them engaged for a variety of reasons. For specific to Kabam, one of the reasons are if you've played our games, that things continue to happen even when you're not logged in. For example, you can be attacked, your buildings complete, build times complete, training queues empty. Also relevant to that, if you've played our games, our build times can be quite long. Some folks don't want to stay online for 12 hours, 24 hours until their castle or their command center completes. So email is a great way to kind of keep them engaged and bring them back in a timely manner. And frankly, email works for us. We're a really highly metrics-oriented company, so everything we do needs to be proven out. And so we've seen with specific games that email, both in terms of retention and ARPU, have definitely increased both retention and ARPU for our players. The way we test it is that we have a holdout population that doesn't receive email, and we essentially just look at the metrics like A/B that way. So what I want to do now is kind of talk to you about some high-level things to kind of keep in mind as you think about email for your company. So the first thing that's really important is really understand why you want to send email, right? So it's pretty straightforward. The email content has to be really relevant and valuable to your player base. And that actually can be really different for your games versus our games. For example, one thing that we've discovered after kind of both scouring our player forums and even talking to our customer service agents is that new users a lot of times, quite frankly, don't really understand how to play our games. Our tutorials are complex, try to cover everything, but strategy games can be a little bit more complicated, so we've decided to implement a lot of tips and tricks into our welcome series for our users. Other things that players really like, it's best practice kind of across all industries, is they like to get rewards and promotions. And so we've implemented those into our emails as well and seen great results, as I will show you here. And so, for example, some of the incentives that we've been implementing into our campaigns, they're not just giving out free things just to give out free things. We reward players for certain types of behaviors. For example, for Dragons of Atlantis here, you're getting a free Fortuna's ticket because you played yesterday. And then you can see strong lifts in open rate and strong lifts in click-through rate over our control. And with trigger emails, basically we send a speed up when you complete a building, so you can actually get started on your next build. And we've seen strong lifts in open rates and click-through rates there as well. So definitely incentives, when used appropriately and in the right manner, can definitely improve your email engagement. Something else that we've been really testing is timeliness of your emails. So we send a couple different types of emails. We send recurring campaigns that just kind of go out on a day-to-day basis based on a variety of business rules. For example, welcome series, newsletters, win-backs. Like if you haven't logged in for X number of days, it'll automatically just send out an email to you. And then there's actually real-time emails that we send out based on actually when in-game events occurred. For example, you're being attacked, your build is complete, you reach a certain levels, which unlocks new content. And so we found that timeliness is really important. And even with recurring campaigns, something to really keep in mind is when you send out daily emails, you've got users from all different types of geos. So when you're thinking about optimal times to send emails, what's optimal for US can be very different than what's optimal for France, than what's different for Germany. So it's definitely, I highly encourage you guys to segment your base and test that way as well, because just when we first started sending email, we just started sending it like at 6 p.m. for everyone, and that turns out to be like 3 a.m. in Europe, and that open rates weren't great. And so just definitely think about things like that. Also with our emails, just especially with our real-time game events, definitely targeting is super important because, like I said, gameplay happens when you're not logged in. So even if you haven't played in 30 days, people can still farm your city and attack it. And quite frankly, if you're a lapsed player and you haven't played in 30 or 40 days, chances are you don't want to get emails every time your city's been attacked in Camelot. So we definitely target in terms of like these types of real game alerts that go out to really players that we know are really active. So something else to think about is to always test and measure. So when we first started our email programs, like I said, we had a holdout population of folks who actually don't get email. And then and then when we proved out certain programs, they become the new business as usual, so they become the new control cell, and then we continue testing on top of that. So some of the things we've been testing, like I said, is the real trigger campaigns, which are the in-game real-time event-based emails, and then for Godfather, we have like what we call the 7 secrets, which is just a daily tip for the first 7 days of your when a new user joins. And so you can see like there's definitely been improvement in terms of ARPU and improvement in terms of retention with these kind of emails, these new email programs that we've been putting in. And and now these are kind of the new BAU, and we continue to test new programs. Other things to test also besides new programs, you always want to test things like subject lines, creatives, like time of day, like the from lines. And so all those things are definitely things when you're testing, just really make sure that you have a holdout population, you have a control population, just to make sure that you're measuring things correctly. So along the lines of what Damien was mentioning earlier, it's really important to segment your users. This is, I'm showing like a really basic segmentation here, payer versus non-payer, but there's other things you can do, active versus lapsed, new versus tenured. You can even be as detailed as something as like, we know that some people play Kingdoms of Camelot because they love to just city build. And we also know that there are other people who play Kingdoms of Camelot because they love to fight each other. Chances are I would message content differently, even though if I'm giving them both an offer, I would message them differently or test different offers from that. So those are other different ways you can segment the base. But I'm just showing something really straightforward here. For non-payers, we're giving them a high discount off of a low minimum purchase. But for people who are already paying, what we want to do is maybe try to increase ASP or increase ARPU. So we kind of give them a discount off a much higher package. And what we've seen is that segmentation we've been able to lift longer term ARPU, so 21-day ARPU is kind of the measurement we've seen here. So folks who our segmented audience, we've seen a 33% lift in ARPU over just folks who get regular one-size-fits-all email. And so these are things you can definitely do to kind of improve your email campaigns. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of work with your BI team or just understanding what data you have and working with your email service provider to really make sure you're integrating that correctly and like putting forth the right campaigns. So in summary, kind of a couple things to really think about when you're rolling out email programs. One, really understand what your users want. Make sure that there's valuable content. Again, your valuable content could be very different from my valuable content. But test and measure and test again. If your company is remotely as metrics oriented as we are here at Kabam, you'll definitely have to make sure you have the right business cases and prove out your programs as often as possible. And finally, honestly, don't treat everyone the same. It's so easy to just send out email blasts to everyone, but your players aren't the same. I've heard this throughout a lot of other sessions here the past few days, but definitely segment your audience, put out different content, do the best you can, just because you'll see the improvements in both email engagement and player engagement and monetization. So, these are just a couple tips and tricks that we've found useful for us. But there's so much more we can talk about. And if you have questions, grab Damien or me afterwards. But quite frankly, email done right leads to stronger retention, stronger monetization. It's done well for us at Kabam. It's a channel we continue to invest in, and I continue to lean on Damien and his team to help us kind of figure out what's the next best thing. So that's all we have around the Kabam case study, around Pulse Points program fundamentals. Appreciate your time. If you guys have any questions, probably have some time to take some now.
So if you have questions, please do ask them.
Thank you. Do you see on your email ones a difference between your web-based versus your mobile-based on the email campaigns, on retentions, number of players you use, and things along those lines?
So that's actually a really good question. We do send email for our mobile games. We only have one. They actually perform really well. I was actually, to be honest, a little bit surprised because we do push notifications through Kingdoms of Camelot as well, which are very successful, but they react really favorably to our email campaigns as well. And actually, in some cases, more positively, and I'm not really sure why, but so our mobile games do just as well with email as our web games.
Hi there. We're just putting in subscription in an iOS title, so Apple requires us to do a registration, so we might as well use that for email marketing. Is there any tool or SDK or anything out there that you would recommend for us to use?
To collect the address from iOS?
No, just like for the whole emailing thing, so for the registration, about like sending out emails, having an unsubscribe button, the whole package.
Pulse Connect. Yeah, so that's essentially what we do. We have Pulse Connect is an email platform that companies like Kabam and PopCap and you know, we work with CNN, HBO. We manage the registration process, the unsubscribe process. Wendy's developers make API calls into our platform to actually trigger the messages going out. The system manages bounces and all the complaint data and everything. So you want to find an ESP. You know, you guys are not in the business of sending email. We are, and you know, bring in someone who knows what they're doing and has that platform built instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. So find yourself an ESP, and they'll manage all that for you, and you just kind of plug it in and make API calls. And there are a bunch out there. I mean, we're one. There are various sizes depending on your needs and how much volume you have out. There's going to be someone who's a good fit.
Hi. If you're an indie developer and you're just starting out and you want to dabble with your first email campaign and you have no record with the ISPs or email carriers, how do you make sure your emails actually get delivered?
So it's definitely a challenge. It can be a challenge. If you're sending low volume, you're probably not going to see very much trouble. The ISPs like predictability. They like to know. They don't like to be surprised by what they see coming from an IP address. If you're sending a very low volume, there are kind of low-cost providers out there that will just basically deliver your mail for you. Like one is SendGrid. It's kind of a cloud-based email delivery mechanism, and they'll just deliver your mail. They don't really provide any services around it. You know, for the most part, the ISPs let your mail in at first, and then if they see negative reaction to it, then they start blocking it. So you have to kind of screw up to get bad delivery.
Question for Kabam. How much, it seems like a lot of work though, if you really do it. So is it part of your job, all of your job, many people are doing a Kabam, many people per game? You know, how much work is this?
So, I mean, I'll be honest, email is a little bit laborious. It's like it's using like 1998 technology. And I have a team, I run a team of 5. We cover not just email, but I cover loyalty, cross-promotion, and whatnot. And I have 2 folks on the team dedicated to email. We leverage Damien and his team.
For all the games?
Yeah, for all the games, for all of our games. And so, it does get a little bit tenuous. The word is tiring. But it's what you would need to do is essentially we test programs and see what works in our games, and then we kind of roll them out across our games. And so we try not just at Kabam, we try not to be so specific. Like Godfather gets these emails, and like Camelot gets these emails, and like Edgeworld gets these emails. We know in general what works best practice, and we'll definitely do specific campaigns when necessary. But I mean, it's something that when you make sure you're setting things up in terms of your testing and working with your art team, like things can scale pretty well. But it's not a one-man job.
Yeah, and there's a pretty small set of types of mail you're going to send. So a lot of it can be template-based, and once you build a program, you can kind of shrink wrap that program and then apply it to multiple games, just swapping out the artwork and the copy. And you know, welcome messages, lapse messages, level ups, these apply to a lot of different games. So you know, we worked with Kabam to build those templates, and then once they built them for one game, we just kind of started rolling them out to each new game, and it's a really effective way to do it.
Great. Any more questions? I have one easy one. You guys were talking about best time of day. What is the best time of day?
It really varies. So there used to be a lot of thought around this before the prevalence of the smartphone. People used to have very predictive behaviors of when they would check email. You'd go home from work and you'd sit down and you'd log into AOL over your modem and you check email, right? Now, you know, people are checking email as they're listening to this presentation. You check email when it comes in. So time of day is less important than it used to be. That said, you don't want to send it, you know, at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning because people just aren't looking at their email probably then. Gamers maybe, but you know.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like, especially if your game reaches people in different geos,
Yep.
for sure, you don't want to just send it all at the same time. Be conscious of people's time zones.
Well, I think that's it. Oh, I actually got one more question. That's about all we have time for, so this will be the last one.
So do you get a lot of customer requests and support stuff coming back from your emails?
Oh, like, do they like reply to our emails with kind of like customer service?
Yes.
Um,
And do you handle those?
no, we,
That's good
no,
enough.
so we haven't set up our like reply to be like, to be an active box, yeah. So we have a separate support alias that is on our website that I think our customers know very well and know to write into.
Typically, what you do is you set up reply content. So if anyone replies to a message, you give them a canned message back that says, "This is not a monitored inbox. For help with this, call this number. For help with this game, call this number," and that will manage it.
Don't call.
Oh, or email address, or website, or Wendy's cell phone number.
Yeah.
Wendy gives her cell phone number to other players.
All right, we need to cut this short at this point, so we can move on to the next one. If you have other questions, and I'm sure you do, grab Wendy or Damien afterwards and chat with them in the back. Thanks.
Thank you.